Hello, welcome to Have Roots Will Travel. My name is Lisa Elvin Staltari, and I'm a genealogist and a passionate traveler. If this is your return visit, welcome back. If this is your first time, this is what we're doing on this channel. Right now, we're focusing on a series called Les Filles du Roi, the King's Daughters, where we're exploring these incredible founding mothers by taking each one of them and doing a mini biography. And in the future, I hope to do, and I have done some travel videos as well, and some basic genealogy. So have a look at that in my YouTube. There's playlists and things like that that you can have a look at. And I also want to stress that if there's one thing, Joelle, in particular that you would like me to look at, please put it in the comments below. I put it right away into my to-do list. I'm currently doing about 2 videos a week, so I'm trying to get through as many as possible. And I will definitely move yours to, that top of the list, I do have a website called How Roots Will Travel, and Facebook and Twitter as well. So please feel free to contact me any which way. My email is lisa@haverootswilltravel.com, and I usually try to respond as quickly as possible. So with that being said, let's get started. Those of you who are regular viewers know that I had produced a video called Les Filles du Roi, the Program 2.0, in which I describe the, the program and how it, in kind of a mini version, and kind of explain how the girls were recruited. So if that is a subject that interests you, please have a look at that. It's on the YouTube channel, I believe under Filles du Roi. So have a look at that. And now let's get started and look at who we're going to profile this week. We will be featuring Francoise Bézilet, who is absolutely a viewer's request. I only have one other incident of her being in my files. She is the grandmother of the husband of a friend of mine. So with that being said, let us get to know Francoise. Francoise was born about 1646 in the parish of Saint-Sauveur. Her parents' names are Benjamin Bézilet, who was a master enamel maker, and her mother was Claude Prou. The church where she was born no longer exists, but can date its existence back to 1216. It was rebuilt in the 16th century and demolished in 1787 with the hope of rebuilding, but a little thing called the French Revolution got in the way. L'église Saint-Sauveur was found on Saint-Sauveur Street and the corner of Saint-Denis. There exists a plaque today commemorating this historic church, and the middle drawing is kind of an illustration of what it did look like. Let's talk a little bit about the location where she was born in Paris, known as le deuxième arrondissement, which means the second arrondissement. Remember, we've talked about Paris being in circles. I drew a little red circle around the second, so you can see it's really in the center of Paris. It's also known as la bourse, which means the purse, or the bourse is also kind of a name for stocks and bonds and that sort of thing. And this arrondissement is located on the right bank of the River Seine, and it's one that is focused really on business activities. There's several banking headquarters, hence the name, that are found here, as well as the former Paris Bourse, the stock exchange, the Paris Opera, the Sancy district, which is the textile district, and the second arrondissement is the home of the Grand Rex, which is the largest movie theater in Paris. Obviously, that didn't exist when she was there. Just want to give you a little bit of a flavor of it in case you want to visit, which I do, of course. Francoise left for New France in 1668 after her father's death. She was about 22 and brought with her, a 300 pounds for her dowry, which is quite significant. She arrived on La Nouvelle-France in Quebec City on July 3rd, 1668. Now, who was the groom that she selected? His name was Laurent Cambin de la Rivière. I was fascinated when I did the research here. He was born in 1636 in Saint Agricole Parish in Avignon, France. His parents were Denis Cambin and Pierrette Gaillot. The church where he would have been baptized was built in the early 1300s, where an older church in the Fustier quartier had once stood. The relics of Saint Agricole, patron saint of Avignon, are kept here. Saint Agricole is the only church from the 1300s to have side aisles. There are many things to see in this particular church, and definitely I've included a link to the YouTube channel that I found a lot of this information. The name of the church dates back to around the 6th century BC. The history of Avignon is among the most fascinating that I've studied so far. Avignon was actually at the papal residency for the Pope for 1308 to 1403 and remained under papal rule until the French Revolution. In 1663, Louis XIV seized Avignon and the Canton Veresat in retaliation for the Corsican Guard affair, an attack on the Duc de la Crécy, the ambassador to the Holy See. Louis returned the Cantons in 1664 after the Pope apologized for the incident. Can you imagine a Pope apologizing? Just amazing. This is the period when Laurent came to New France as part of the Carignan regiment. So there was a lot going on. Today, the city is a major tourist attraction with the annual Festival d'Avignon, which is one of the world's largest festivals for the performing arts. In 1995, the center of the town, the Papal Palace, the Cathedral, and the Pont d'Avignon became a UNESCO World Heritage Site. I just draw your attention to the Pont d'Avignon there because when I was a little girl, we would sing the song, Sous le Pont d'Avignon. I'm not going to sing, but, well, I just did. But we would sing that song, and now I came all flooding back when I researched the town. So it really, that bridge of Avignon is one that is very, very famous as a children's song as well. So you can find it on YouTube as well and get the lyrics, and they sing it way better than I do. So Laurent was a sergeant with the Carignan regiment. He wasn't just a troop or just a soldier. And he arrived with the Gagne company on September 11 of 1665 on the boat called Le Saint-Sébastien. And aboard that ship was also the newly appointed governor of New France, René Courcelles, and the intendant Jean Renaud. So he was in very, very good company. So Laurent would have stayed on in New France after the battles were over in 1665. The peace treaty was signed, and he most likely would have received some sort of land or certainly employment or financial benefits. He would have probably established a home in anticipation of one of the filles du roi. And on that boat, the 3rd of July, came Francoise, and by the 16th of August, 1668, Laurent and Francoise were married in Quebec City. So Francoise and Laurent would not settle in Quebec City, but it would instead decide to make their lives in the area of Montreal. So let's talk a little bit about Montreal, this wonderful city that would become Montreal, started off as Ville-Marie by the founder, Paul de Chomedy, Sœur de Maisonneuve, and was essentially a missionary center. It was established in May of 1642. The colony would not thrive. It was by 1651, there was like 50 people living there, just through the Indian Wars and disease and that sort of thing. So it was on the verge of extinction. And finally he said, I'm going to go back to France and get some people here. So there was a grand recruit, which is the great recruitment, and they arrived about 100 settlers. And out of these 100 settlers would come present-day Montreal. I mean, that's essentially the nugget, if you will. And it would evolve, into the Notre Dame congregation from the sister, the Marguerite Bourgeois, who was on one of the great recruits. Anyone who's ever gone to Montreal will know that it has a cosmopolitan feel. It has truly a European and very much like Quebec City, not quite as old, but almost. And because of the incredible explosion that it was. When Montreal was first founded, it was really, people laughed. In Quebec City and Three Rivers, they thought, oh my gosh, this little, place on an island, who's ever going to live there? Well, it turned out that where they lived, that island and the proximity to the St. Lawrence River became their greatest strength. So eventually, over time, Montreal overtook both Quebec City and Three Rivers and became the dominant place that it is today, and an international city on many, many levels. And so some of these some of these maps are drawn from the 1600s, and then of course on the upper middle of your screen is Montreal as I know it today. And I grew up about an hour away from Montreal in a town called Drummondville. So obviously this is, a city that I've gone to many, 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 many times. Love it. Still discovering it. And just every chance I get, I love to go there. So this is where they would establish themselves and their family. So Laurent and Françoise would have Marie-Françoise, who would go on to marry Antoine Galipeau and have 7 children, 7 of whom would survive to adulthood. So as they were beginning their lives and they just had their baby, Laurent would pass away in a Montreal hospital. So he obviously was suffering from some ailment, and we do not know what, on May 5th, 1670, and he was only 35 years old. So Françoise would then be, a widow, and in a strange country with a young baby girl. And what did she end up doing? And in true New France fashion, one man dies and another arrives. Let's see who showed up to really help her combat all of these challenges. So the groom that would come to her rescue, his name was Pierre-François Marcel de Marrière. He was born in 1626 in Saint Nicolas, the parish, in Rouen, Normandy. And his parents were Jean Marcel and Jacqueline de Vincent. And the Rouen, where Pierre-François is from, Rouen is a city that is incredible. It is on the riverside in northern France. It's the capital of the region of Normandy, and it has an amazing historical story and was at one time the largest city in medieval Europe. It played a prominent role in both English and French histories from the 11th to about the 15th century. Joan of Arc was tried and burned alive in this area, actually. The top portion of your screen is kind of the center of the town where that would have occurred. And Rouen is a city that is cultural and very educational. It has one of the most prestigious universities there as well. It was from this area that the Statue of Liberty sailed in 1888. And so L'Armada, they started in the 1980s to kind of celebrate this event. And so L'Armada is held every 4 to 6 years, and it's a gathering of sailing ships from around the world. And the next Armada will take place next year in June of 2023. Each Armada has a theme, and the next one will be the Armada of Liberty. Pierre-François was a sergeant with the Carignan Regiment and arrived with the Chambly Company on June 18, 1665. And so he arrived a couple of months before Laurent, her first husband. Did they know each other? I don't know. It is entirely possible that they did, and that was the connection. Or it simply is that, the word got out that Laurent had passed away, and his widow was there. Pierre obviously was still not married, and there's the story. I just always wonder how they meet, On the 22nd of September, 1670, Françoise and Pierre were married in Quebec City. So somehow, she was in Montreal, then she returned to Quebec City to get married. So we go back to Montreal to settle, and we're settling at Pointe-aux-Trembles, which is, you know, still part of the island. As you can clearly see, I've pointed an arrow there. It is on the northern tip. And then Pointe-aux-Trembles was a municipality founded in 1674. The windmill at Pointe-aux-Trembles is still in existence today. It's at the corner of Notre Dame Street and 3rd Avenue, and it was built in 1719. It is the tallest windmill in Quebec that still stands. And now, the Pointe-aux-Trembles is located where the St. Lawrence and the Rivière de Prairie join, and was selected as a location to help defend Montreal. You can absolutely see why. I mean, the ships would come in, and they were right there. And so they basically began to build their life in this area, and the church that was established was in 1671, so we have records from there as well. A wooden fort was built at Pointe-aux-Trembles as early as 1675, and then the windmill followed in 1677, and then by 1678 the church was built. Now, and this is the windmill here on the bottom of your screen, and of course the church that was eventually going to be built from the original. So Françoise would and Pierre would continue to build a life, and here they had another 10 children. Françoise would marry Gilles Morin, but would not have any children. Marie-Renée would marry Jean-Baptiste Gaspard de Dufresne and would have 5 children, 3 of whom would reach adulthood. Antoinette, dite Anne, would marry Pierre Brulot, dite Lafleur, and would have 4 children, all of whom reached adulthood. Pierre, unfortunately, would die in infancy. Jeanne would marry Pierre Cadieux and have 12 children, all of whom reached adulthood. François would marry Isabelle Desroches and would have, listen to this, 17 children, 12 of whom reached adulthood. Jean-Baptiste would marry Marie-Anne Denis and would have 2 children, both of whom reached adulthood. But he would ultimately die at 33. Marie-Catherine would die in infancy. Joseph would marry Marie Foran and have 1 child who made it to adulthood. Their last child died in infancy. It's true, Françoise would lose Pierre. They were married for at least 20 years. He would die we do not have a marriage record, a death record for him, but he would die sometime between 1691 and 1693. And the reason we know that is Françoise would remarry and let us go to husband number 3. So the third husband, his name is André Corbeil de Tranche-Montagne. I mean, what a name. He was born in 1664 in Saint-Perchy in Saint-Onge, France. He was a soldier with the Carignan regiment, and he was almost 20 years younger than Françoise. So André and Françoise were married on the 4th of January, 1693 in Pointe-aux-Trembles. I've not been able to find a record of her 3rd marriage. This time, the sudden end would be for Françoise. She would pass away within 18 months of their marriage. She died giving birth. At this point, she was 48 years old. And the boy also passed away with her. Her husband André would go on to marry Charlotte Poudre, and with whom he had 5 children. He would die in 1740. But this is the cemetery where she is buried, and the death record as well. A very, very sad end. And remember, they didn't really have a choice in the birth control or any of that, and so to have had as many children as she had and to be 48 years old in pregnancy obviously was not good for her body. And we salute her for her indomitable spirit and the fact that she survived, even with all that was put upon her. Truly a remarkable. And if this is your descendancy, you can be extraordinarily proud of Françoise. And with that, we end another episode We are on number, I think it's 55. I lose track. And I will see you on episode number 56 very shortly. Until then, au revoir.